How's it, everybody? Celtic Link here. We're back for another Dokkan battle video. In today's video, we are picking back up on our beginner's guide. For those of you who are joining back with us, in previous videos, we have covered the basics of the unit. That is, we have went over how to understand the unit typings and various intricacies that go into the typings, how it affects their ability to damage or not damage other units, as well as their ability to take damage from the different typings and how it affects their stats. We also spent time talking about the unit's kits, their passives, their leader skills, their super attacks, and everything that makes up a unit and makes them work. We took some time in a previous video to talk about the hidden potential system and how investment into that system affects the unit's full power. We then left off with a video on the link skill system and how you should invest time in leveling up your character's links to make the most out of the unit's powers, and how those links can be used to be put together with various units. So, having all that together, for those of you joining us, we're now going to move into team building. We're going to be talking about how to take all of that information, the understanding of the typing, the passives, the hidden potential, and the link skills, and put together a team. Because there's a lot the game does and doesn't tell you about building a team. Once we finished up this video, we will go into talking about acquiring new units through various methods, either through summoning or acquiring free-to-play units, and how to awaken all of those units. And that'll be in a separate video here. Following that, we will talk about item and resource management. That is, once you've acquired everything you need to awaken your units, how to manage them appropriately so you don't find yourself running low in odd situations. And then finally, we will take all of this, we will put it together. You guys will help me put together a team, and we will take on a challenge run with a team of your guys' choosing. So let's go ahead let's transition to our game, and let's talk a little bit about how to put a team together. So I have us here in the team building section of the game. Now, we're going to use Team Bardock as our example here, because I believe, more so than the Ginyu Force, really, the Team Bardock is set up to really teach you the basics of team building. This here is a free-to-play team that you can acquire through your weekly free-to-play missions. Every week, every day of the week, there's a different mission for acquiring a different unit of the Bardock or the Ginyu squad. Once you've collected all of them, you can grab the LR for the leader, awaken all of them, and then Easy A them and start using them. So the way I'm looking at them here, this is them at Easy A, but it will help to illustrate my point about putting together as a team. So the very first thing you usually want to do when putting together a team is look at the leader. What is the team you want to run, and who leads the team? So being that we're using the free-to-play Team Bardock as our example here, we see that these guys are a leader for the team for 120%, giving key 3 attack and defense and HP. So the thing about leader skills, right, is some characters cover various leader skills that may not necessarily be directly the category you're trying to run, but you could run multiple of different characters as long as they fit under one of the totalities of the leader skills. So for this video, we'll just focus on the singular leader skill of Team Bardock, and then we'll put our own team together after using what we talked about. So we have Team Bardock here. So we have our dedicated leader. Now, sometimes depending on the case, your leader may or may not be the focal point of your run. In the case of Team Bardock, the actual leader is not the focal point, right? He is not part of what we're going to call your core. He's helpful, he supports the team, right? If we look at his passive, he actually has a 30% buff for Team Bardock allies, but he's not actually part of your core. The Team Bardock is set up to teach you about several different mechanics of team building. First off, it teaches you about choosing your core. What a core is basically two sets of units that work and synergize well together. They link well together, roughly 3 to 6 links. Realistically, you want to be somewhere in the 4 to 5 range. I mean, very rare. There are very rare cases where units have 6 to 7 links, right? Most units don't have that many links together unless you're specifically trying to go for that. And even then, it's very hard to build a team around that sometimes, depending on the unit. So somewhere around 4 to 5 is usually what you're going to be looking at for link skills. So a core is units that link well together, right? 3 to 6 links, and then who synergize well together, whose super attacks and whose passives work well with each other. So we'll start with the Bardock here. So the Bardock here, when we look at his super attack, he is sealing the super attack, but then on his passive, he is reducing damage received for every Bardock member on the team, which means he gets up to a 50% damage reduction. He also is getting his own buff for himself, but we're really focused here on the damage reduction he's getting and the sealing of the super attack. So because he has damage reduction, that makes him an ideal slot 1 unit for one of your core rotations. Now, because he seals on his super attack, that makes him an excellent partner for another character on the team. So if I were just randomly building this team, not intentionally trying to buy it, I would want to look for a character who specifically benefits from having Bardock in slot 1 and sealing the enemy before they attack. Now, the Bardock members have exactly that, right, with the Shugesh here. So the Shugesh on his passive, if the enemy is sealed, he has a guaranteed stun, right? So you could run him in the second slot next to that Bardock, who will be reducing damage, as well as getting his own buff per key sphere, and he will then be pretty tanky and allow this guy, who is an attack and defense stacker, to build up in the second slot, and also stunning the enemy if you're in an event that can actually be stunned. So you want to play around. So this would be one possible core you could build out of this team. So a rotation of Bardock in slot 1, Shugesh in slot 2. Then in the other rotation, your second core, right, would be one of the other Bardock squad members. Now, because the Borgors here only raises attack and defense for 1 turn, while he can synergize well with the Bardock. Because he's not an attack stacker, you don't want to run him on the main rotation, right? You see that his build is more about what types of enemies you run. So it really doesn't matter what slot he's in. So he's best used as a third slot option. Your second rotation wants to have another stacker, right? Or at least somebody who has guaranteed constant defense. So that is the Tora. So the Tora will benefit from having, if we look here, all allies, he's giving a buff, but he also is recovering. So you'd want to take advantage of that on your second slot. So basically, one rotation is Bardock and Shugesh, who can take advantage of the defense stacking and the slot 1 Bardock, and then the Tora can heal up any damage that was taken on the next turn, as well as building his attack and defense every single turn. So that's really kind of how you want to work them. You could also, if you were in a longer event where you had time to build early on, run this Tora as a core next to the Shugesh, because the Shugesh, as we saw here, has an ability to launch additional super attacks if the enemy is in attack down or defense down status, which this guy does on his super attack effect, right? So it really depends on how you want to set up. You just want to decide who you want to set up and where. So me personally, when I build this setup, I run Bardock and Shugesh on one rotation, and then I run Fasha and Tora on the other rotation. Fasha is a great slot 1 unit for early game stuff, as she has the ability to dodge, right? And she also changes type key spheres for cards like the LR, who then need to be able to super attack. With them being in the third slot, that's very, very helpful for them. She's also a support unit. So support units you can float, but with the way Team Bardock is set up, you only have one really dedicated slot 1 unit. So your second core has to be kind of reliant on a card like this. Now you could also set it up so you have Bardock and Tora on one or Bardock and Borgos on one rotation, and then Tora and Shugesh on the other, allowing Tora to build and Shugesh to build, and then you have 2 infinitely stacking. I mean, you could play around with it. You just need to figure out how you want to run it and understanding how the units themselves are going to be supporting each other. So a rotation of a core rotation of Fasha and Tora, for example, with Tora constantly raising his attack and defense and them both giving each other support, it actually ends up being a pretty tanky rotation, right? After a couple of turns, especially when you consider that she can greatly raise. So she's getting a double raise on her defense each turn, as well as lowering the attack and defense. So when you're in events where that's possible, she can actually end up being really tanky if she ends up having to take a hit if she misses her dodge. So really, that is the one thing I like about how this game approaches giving you the 2 free-to-play teams, this team and the team, the Ginyu squad, is that they're basically meant to show you how units can work well together in building a core of units, your 2 rotations, that is, and how the units synergize and link well with each other, right? Every Bardock member shares 4 to 5 links. Some of them more so than others. Like I think the LR and the STR Bardock here share 6 links. So you have yourself here a very, very good, solid team that teaches you everything you need to know about putting together a good team. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take that, we're going to look at my box list here, and we're going to put together a team using everything we just went over. So the first thing we're going to do is select a category. So since the theme of most of these beginners guide has been Saiyan Saga, we're going to go ahead and use a Saiyan Saga leader skill. With that, we want to consider units that 1, lead the category, 2, units that link well with each other. And then we'll want to look at who is going to be our 2 core rotations for us to take on an event with this team. Now, it doesn't have to be the best team. We're just trying to illustrate a point here. So first and foremost, we are on global, and I do not have Dokkan. I do not have the Dokkan LR Goku and Piccolo, and Yamcha has not released yet on global. So as of this time, our best leader for Saiyan Saga is actually the Dokkan Festival Fizz Raditz. So we're going to select him as our leader here. So we're going to go to the team building option here. We're just going to pick one of my random categories. We'll remove this team. All right, and we'll set him as the leader. All right, so now we have him as our leader. We have to decide whether or not we're going to try to build a team around him or have him as a floating leader. I'm going to have him as a floating leader, and I'm going to have my core of 2 other leaders. Now, understand that Raditz is a 200% leader, meaning he can lead Saiyan Saga or Pure Saiyans and give 30% to anybody on Saiyan Traveling Warriors. So when we're talking about Pure Saiyans or Saiyan Saga, we are actually looking at units. If we want the full 200%, that's pretty much only the Nappas, Vegetas, and Raditzes. Everyone else will only be receiving the 170% buff. So from there, we need to decide who our core rotations are. So because we have the 7th Anniversary Part 2 LRs, we're going to use them as our core rotation. So one rotation will be with the Vegeta, the other rotation will be with the Goku. So the Vegeta himself, he has damage reduction, or not damage reduction, but he does guard all attacks. So that makes him an excellent slot 1 unit, right? Your slot 1 units usually need to be very tanky. They need to have either damage reduction or guard or dodge if the event allows. So we will have a slot 1 unit of the Great Ape Vegeta here, which means now we need a good partner for him. On Saiyan Saga, there's only a few options we can use. Since he is Great Ape, we can either use, we can't use that one because they share the same name, right? So we need to look at another Vegeta so they would actually share all links, but since since they share the same name, they can't. So we would need another Vegeta. So the only other Vegeta he can link well with is the Fizz Vegeta here. We could link him with Nappa or the LR Nappa and Vegeta if we wanted to, but we're going to choose the Fizz Vegeta here. So you can see that these guys share a couple links together. The LR here has Saiyan Warrior Race, Royal Lineage, Transform, over 9,000, Saiyan Roar, Shattering the Limits, and Legendary Power. If we look at the Fizz one here, the Fizz Vegeta, he's got Saiyan Warrior Race, Royal Lineage, Saiyan Pride, Prodigies over 9,000, Prepared for Battle, and Shattering the Limits. So they have 5 out of 7 links. So that's going to be a pretty good rotation. That's what you want. The LR here has has guard, like I said, which means he can be helpful in slot 1 for that unit. And then you have the Vegeta here, who raises attack and defense every single turn. So he's stacking. So having a character with guard in slot 1, allowing this character to greatly stack his attack and raise his defense is very, very good. It will allow this character to build up while the other one is protecting him until he is built up. And then you can swap him in and out of slot 1 as you please. Now, we said we were going to use the other anniversary LR, the Kaioken Goku. All right, so he needs another partner. Now, the problem with him having another partner is on Saiyan Saga, there are actually no good slot 1 partners for him. This guy is extremely powerful, arguably one of the highest attack yellow coin LRs in the game. The problem with him is he has not the greatest defense, unless you are specifically fighting a Vegeta. And even then, it's like, you don't want to be taking a super before you attack, right? So for him, we need somebody who can do well in slot 1. His best partner is actually this guy right here. They share, I believe, all of their links. If not, it's 6 links. Let's double check here. So we're going to add him to the team, but I'm going to talk about something when fixing your core, because there are certain ways you can play around that. And I do this all the time if you guys see some of my videos. So if we look at the links here, Version Z Goku shares Z Fighters, All in the Family, Saiyan Lineage, Kamehameha, Experienced Fighters, Shattering the Limit, and Legendary Power. Whereas he has Kamehameha, Saiyan Lineage, Z Fighters, Over in a Flash, Shocking Speed, Shattering the Limits, Legendary Power. So 5 links, right? So still pretty good. So that would be a good setup. They would link well together and support each other very well. But like I said, the problem is neither one of these are good slot 1 units. And on Global, we don't have the good slot 1 unit here that we could add for them. The AGL LR Goku from the 8-year anniversary part 2. What we do have, though, is a unit who won't share many links. In fact, I don't think they share any links. But this STR Nappa, Fierce Battle, Shocking... Oh, they have Shocking Speed. Okay. And Saiyan Warrior Race. So what we're going to do is put this Nappa in for him. So one rotation will be the 2 Vegetas together. They will work together very well. One protects the other while the other builds. Then we will have the Nappa in slot 1 in the second rotation, and the Kaioken Goku in slot 1 in the first rotation. Now, so you ask why I do that. Well, that will allow us to float the Goku. Why do we want to float this Goku? Well, this Goku is a supporter. Notice he has all allies for Ki 2 and attack and defense 30%. So when you are facing an extreme class enemy, he can support the rotation, meaning giving everybody an extra 30%. So this is very, very helpful to the team. He can give both rotations, even if he's not linking well with them, some extra support buffs. And then on the turns, when he is in the third slot next to the Kaioken Goku, he will provide those extra links to him, allowing him to work better. So you can see that you don't, while you do want to establish a core of good linking well units, there are ways to work around it to make sure the characters you need get the attacks, or get the links that they need and the support they need, and work well together. This Nappa is a great slot 1 unit for the team, because you see here he's got a 780 defense multiplier, meaning nothing's touching him as long as you're at full HP. So he will be a good slot 1 option to cover the Goku on the turns when that version Z Goku isn't on. So that, in a nutshell, is kind of the way you want to approach building teams. Again, as I said, begin by deciding who your leader is. Once you've decided your leader, decide who your core units are. If you find that one of your cores does not link well, look at who you can place in the third slot to run them. If you look at any of my Red Zone videos, you can see that, you know, I don't always have the best slot 1 linking partners. Where my linking partners tend to come in is in the slot 3, especially on teams where I have to run like the LR Gods, for example. It's all not the slot 1 units you need on there don't always link well with the other units run under their leader skills. So just something to consider. But that's the basics of how you want to approach team building. In our next video, we're going to talk about how you can acquire new units to add into these teams that you've built. There are various ways you can summon for units, you can grind out certain free-to-play events, but we'll talk about all of that, when you ought to be summoning, when you ought to be grinding certain units, in the next video. So make sure you guys stay tuned for that. So anyways, guys, that is the video. That is the basics of team building. There are a lot more intricacies, too much to cover all in one video, so we will be pacing this out as best we can, so make sure you stay tuned. But if you guys liked this video, this overview of team building, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you have not already. And in the comments down below, let me know, was this video helpful for you? Did it kind of cover anything you didn't already know? Did it reveal something new, or did I completely leave something out for you? Hopefully you found something for this video, and if you did, again, let me know in the comments down below. Otherwise, guys, as always, thanks for watching, and aloha.